So when I was going through some of my difficulties through this time and trying to figure out and everything that was going on with my husband at the time, trying to navigate that, I would talk to my dad and I would say, can you please guide me? Can you please help me? And I would also say, what the hell? What the F? Even to the universe. Why is this happening to me? What did I do to ever deserve this kind of stuff that I was going through? I now know when I was stuck in the negative cycle because I was most likely mourning for a really long time. Call it depressed, that may have been partially, but I also do believe that right around the time when he passed away, when both parents passed away, I did start perimenopause. So these were family events, things that were unexpected. They were triggering for me and I believe sent me into the perimenopause cycle. Welcome to the very first Queen Circle virtual leadup. I am your host and founder of the Menopause Mindshift books and self-love community, self-love podcast, Lisa R. Triggs. To start it off, the very first one, great topic would be the vast variety of menopause symptoms. Depression, anxiety, insomnia, fatigue, then some lesser known ones. I didn't know that mood swings were affiliated, memory problems, difficulty concentrating the focus, joint pain. I've had some really interesting things happen to me, like excessive sneezing, some urinary issues and infections, bloating, digestive issues, vertigo or the dizziness, allergies or sensitivities, heightened. I never used to have allergies. ADHD-like symptoms. Itchy skin, restless leg syndrome, feelings of overwhelm. I experienced a lot of that. A new one is prolapse. I didn't list quite all 33 there, but maybe we will go through them just so we can get a feel of what to expect, what I experienced, and how I dealt with it. The first one on my list is hot flashes, sudden feelings of intense heat, often accompanied by sweating. There was a time when I would wake up drenched. I was having multiple hot flashes a night, and it was very difficult to sleep. And at the same time, of course, I was experiencing insomnia. So I was unable to fall asleep till sometimes 2, 3 in the morning. And then I would wake up again to have to pee in a hot flash or a night sweat. That was not a fun time at all. And here's what I learned about that and how I dealt with it. I did try various different things. Marijuana gummies and marijuana tincture. I was moving my body, but as it turned out, in the wrong way. I was trying to eat better, but I talk about this a lot. The one reason that I believe really made this extra tough for me was stress. It's not really listed as a menopause symptom, but I believe stress is. I think that we can become overstressed with the things that are happening to our bodies, and it can affect us negatively. What I did was I sought counseling. Also, during that time, that's when I decided to go on hormone replacement therapy and ask my doctor about that. And while it did help me sleep a little bit and gave me a little bit more energy, there were other symptoms that it did not help with my feelings of fatigue, memory problems, or dry skin, joint pain, anything like that. Having to wake up to go to the bathroom. Other physical symptoms that I'll get into in just a few moments. Just so you know, from what I understand, medical doctor experts today, Dr. Mary Claire Haver in particular, is that they're finding new symptoms all the time that are related to menopause. And it's up to around 100, maybe a little bit more. So think about that for a moment. I experienced about 33 out of possible 100 symptoms. I believe that I've come to see, even with my own experience and people I have met, that they don't want to recognize that there are certain things going on in their life that may be happening to them physically, emotionally, mentally, that are attributed to menopause. I want to bust that myth a little bit because I encountered that even this very weekend within my own family. I was with a couple of my sisters, and I do have a handicapped sister who is in her 60s now. I'm absolutely positive that she, if not has already started, is going through menopause or postmenopause. And apparently she's having anger issues. She's in a wheelchair, she tenses herself up, and then she gets, yells and screams and gets really angry. She can't speak, but she communicates, with her voice, laughing or, yelling, crying with emotions. So apparently she's tensing up in her wheelchair and getting very angry and all that. So I believe they've given her some kind of medication. It may be a sedative of some sort to help her with her anger issues. So I said, it's probably menopause. It was totally dismissed. Like I didn't even say it. Didn't even say a word about it, that could be it. Just went on to another topic, kind of. And I thought, well, first of all, how rude. Love you, sisters, but, at least acknowledge the comment is made. And this is what I do now. I'm the menopause queen. I'm going to say I'm an expert on menopause, having been through it for almost 20 years now, through the various phases. I'd say I've learned a thing or two, so I'm going to call myself an expert. I'm sure that attributes to more than 10,000 hours. They say that if you've done something for 10,000 hours, that makes you an expert. That's a prime example where it just totally, and I'm thinking girls, they're all older than me, so they're all in their approaching late 60s. They have all been through menopause now, so I'm guessing they have an easy ride, totally different journey than I have had, that I know of anyway. No one has expressed to me the difficulties that I have had, whether they're just not talking about it. And frankly, this is one area where I actually don't talk about it with them. I really don't, because I really don't know if I will be validated. After what I've been through, I do have one sister that does know what has been going on, but whether she has passed that on to anybody else, I don't know if I would want her to, some things confidential. Just that lack of either knowledge or mindset frame. I just find there are people that are very stuck in their ways. And if you're used to living your life a certain way for so long and you don't go outside of that box, you kind of live in the box because that's where it's safe and that's where it's comfortable, then things like mentioning might have something to do with menopause wouldn't be something that they would consider or think about. It was a little frustrating, but I don't hold a grudge. I don't expect anything to change anytime soon. Ladies, I know it's rather personal, but I did experience vaginal dryness. I did go on medication for that for a while as well. That medication, one of the side effects was frequent yeast infection. It said it right on the package. I did go to the gynecologist, who was the one who prescribed that to me, and we discussed what other options were. I said, is there anything more natural kind of that I could maybe use or that might help me with this problem? She suggested coconut oil, and that was the best advice any doctor has ever given me. Coconut oil, we can get it in liquid form now, but not the liquid. We're talking, it's this in solid form, because coconut oil is naturally antibacterial. It's a natural lubricant, so you can use it inside, outside, and cook with it too. You can use it on yourself. You can use it on your partner. You can use it during intimacy. You can use it not during intimacy if you're just feeling uncomfortable or dry. It can help a lot. It has really, really helped me. I didn't know that I had anxiety at the time, but now I know I did. Also because I did not know that I had anger or rage until just like 2 years ago. I thought that I just was an angry person, or there were other factors in my life that were making me angry, which could very well be true, that outside forces were contributing factors. I needed to focus on me and forget about the outside forces. Finding out it was a menopause symptoms made much more sense. I felt much less bad about myself for being angry and losing my temper. My husband would even tell me, "You're so angry all the time." He was actually walking on a little bit of eggshells to avoid me getting angry. Once I recognized that, that was part of the process to get a hold of that and be aware where when I start to feel like that and kind of examine what's going on with me. If somebody else is bothering me on the outside, then check with myself to say, don't let them, or why would it, or resolve the situation. Fatigue, lots of fatigue and joint pain. I do know that I am starting to get arthritis at the base of my neck, even my hands. I also have carpal tunnel, so that doesn't help at all. I also have scoliosis, which doesn't help with the arthritis and the fatigue at all. So again, that was a situation I didn't know fatigue was necessarily a menopause symptom. I thought it was due to my condition and other factors, age. To learn that it was an actual menopause symptom was really enlightening. Again, could be related to the other thing. Most likely is part of the condition of having scoliosis at the base of my neck. Now, knowing that it's an actual menopause symptom, I can think back on the timeline of when I started to feel differently or started to feel more fatigued and tired. I have experienced extreme tiredness. I had trouble getting up in the morning. I had trouble functioning, just getting myself going. And once I made the shift and have made the change, I at first forced myself to get up and forced myself to get going. And then once I was up and going, it was okay. But during the thick of my menopause years, while I was getting the extreme hot flashes and really experiencing depression and the insomnia, I really just had a lack of energy that I didn't know was contributed to this at the time. I thought it was other things. I thought it was what was going on outside of me instead of what was going on inside of my body and my hormone levels. Weight gain, you'll hear me say it again and again. I gained almost 40 pounds during menopause. I was stressed to the max and then experiencing all these symptoms on top of it, not knowing what right exercises, and of course, not getting enough sleep, and not knowing how to lower that stress. I was puffy when I turned 50. My belly was very extended. It looked like I was about 5 months pregnant, and my whole body changed. I was not used to carrying that kind of weight. I was always been generally a kind of small person. Even after I had my children, up until I was in my late 40s, I was about 125 pounds. And then all of a sudden I was up to, 150, 160. I even broke the 170 mark. I hated that. That has been actually the thing that has been most difficult for me to wrap my head around, to accept, and to love myself for, is carrying the extra weight. My belly was extended, so I had balance problems. We were vacationing in Mexico in some Mayan ruins, and you could walk up the ruins. And I had to have my husband help me down because I felt unstable. He's like, "What the heck?" And I said, "You know what? I feel unstable. I'm not used to carrying this weight, so I'm not used to how to maneuver this body." So it has taken some getting used to. Next on the list is thinning hair or hair that's falling out. My hair was falling out like crazy. I couldn't understand it. And again, I did not know that was related, that it was a menopause symptom. I didn't know what was going on. Stress can also, of course, affect things like that. So it was coming out in droves. I didn't know what to do about that. Tried shampoo, went to the hairdresser, and then come to find out it is a menopause symptom. Made so much sense. Started taking collagen. Had the hairdresser cut my hair in like shoulder layers, and now it's growing back thicker again and doesn't fall out nearly as much. Massive dry skin, that's a symptom. Actually, even the other day, I put some moisturizer on my legs and it was still looking like it was dry, and it made me quite curious for sure. Joint pain, particularly my legs. I have experienced joints in my knees, which really kind of sucks because here I am trying to move my body more. So I'm trying to walk and use some weightlifting and so forth. And then my knees are popping. I get collagen has helped with that, and vitamin C, things like that. Here is one that I didn't know at all this may be a menopause symptom. I had a hard time believing this was, but it's the only thing that I can figure it's related to because this is something that has never really happened before the last maybe 5, 6 years. That is excessive sneezing. Here's the thing, TMI a little bit. I get this excessive sneezing. I'm talking 9, 10. I have counted like 15 times in a row that I have sneezed. And it's while I'm going to the bathroom. I have no idea. But like I said, it only started about 5, 6 years ago. Only when I'm going to the bathroom, and it's literally one right after the other. I try to blow my nose while I'm sitting there doing my thing. It eventually stops, but no, I am not kidding you. I sneeze minimum 10 times in a row. Urinary incontinence and urinary urgency, of course, for a while. Leakage. I actually experienced that more when I was in perimenopause, believe it or not. I remember being in my late 30s on vacation with our kids in Mexico, and we took them on one of those pirate ship dinner things. I remember I was wearing a yellow outfit my husband had bought me, so it had the cute little yellow breeze, and this little matching yellow jacket. Well, I am so glad that it was yellow because there was a bathroom on board as well, which I did utilize. In between that, for some reason, I peed myself. I couldn't believe it. I had just gone to the bathroom and then all of a sudden it just happened. I had no control over it. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow. So I went to the bathroom again and I couldn't believe it. That's the worst time that I can remember that happening. I would wear a light days, sometimes because I was afraid of peeing myself. And since I started exercising more in the right way, doing the walking and so forth, so I'm strengthening my butt muscles and Kegel area, that is definitely not as bad as it was. So it could also be attributed to being postmenopausal now. So that symptom seems to have been alleviated, of course, along with many other by this point. I did notice some body odor changes, of course, the dizziness and vertigo. I would get the tingling sensations in my arms, sometimes in my legs as well. Another one big for me is digestive issues. I have never belched so much since I was pregnant and I don't get it. So even, of course, as we get older, different foods we can't handle anymore, which really kind of sucks is why does that even happen? Why are bodies made up to change like this and not be able to handle the same things as we get older? It just seems not fair. I guess maybe that's a sign that as we get older, we need to take better care of our bodies in order to keep them functioning. Maybe when we're younger, we use them and abuse them too much. So digestive issues for sure. I started getting heartburn, feeling it up here. I could just feel sometimes when things weren't going down, along with that digestive issue with feeling bloating and things like that. Another strange thing that I had happen was toothaches. I went to the dentist. I literally made an appointment with the dentist. I'm like, can you check and see if I have a cavity? Like my tooth over here, it's been hurting. It's been hurting for a few weeks now. It seems very tender. And I have a regular flosser. I floss like every other day. My gums are very healthy. They give me a clean bill of health. With my oral health is very good. The dentist told me that everything looked fine and everything was great. Maybe I was clenching, so I did get mouth guard to help with clenching, because we were just hypothesizing what it could be, that maybe I was grinding my teeth together or I was clenching out of stress or anxiety, whatever, being tense. They did say everything looked great. And then when I found out the toothache was on the list of symptoms, okay, chalk that one up to menopause too. I had toothaches. ADHD-like symptoms, increasing difficulty with focus, impulsivity in managing tasks. Yes, lack of focus I put in with this one together with the ADHD-like symptoms. I use Siri in my phone. If you saw my phone, you would see that I have about 30 reminders. Some are day and time to actually have it give me a notification to remind me. And some are actually just listed of things to me to remember, to say, do, or otherwise. So that's been a real struggle, as I'm sure many of us, not being able to focus. And it really, really difficult for me because I was a person who could focus quite well and stay on task and handle multiple things going at the same time. I was always organized. Having the difficulty with focus worried me. I went to the doctor again because I was worried because along with it was memory issues. Memory problems kind of go a little bit with the ADHD together. I have a family history of tumors. My mother has had 2 benign tumors removed from her head, and unfortunately my father did pass away of brain cancer. When I started to forget things and I couldn't remember what I was just doing or what I went into a room to do or what I needed to do for work, I got very concerned. So I went to the doctor, and because of family history, of course, had a CAT scan, and then there's another one that you get for your head. I had both of those different times just to make sure everything was okay, and everything did look okay. That was a relief. I live my life or have lived my life writing things down, using reminders. Stuff is in my calendar because it is so frustrating to not be able to be the person you once were. And that's been difficult for me. Along with that difficulty to focus, more ADHD-like, is I don't know about anybody else, but once you get something in your head, you got to do it. And what I found what was happening with me was if I thought of something I needed to do, I would do it right away so that I know it was done so that I wouldn't forget. But sometimes that would throw me off track in some other areas. So my day would be half over before I got to important things. So that has been a little frustrating as well. All of these things, so you know, have all improved in the last 2 years since I've been working on myself and working on internal and external as a package. I maintain that I have manifested. I have used de-stressing techniques of visualization and meditation, writing things down and getting it off of my mind to help de-stress, which has helped a lot of these symptoms. The medical community may argue, of course, the physiological, that the fact that my hormone levels did start to go up. My estrogen did start to raise. And then I knew as I was doing more for my body in the right way, that was going to continue to raise on its own naturally. So the physiological aspect, I would contradict a little bit because the mind is a very powerful thing. It really, really is. Mind over matter. The more you focus on something, the better you get at it. You focus on the fact that your body is a wellness making machine, that your hormones are stable and perfect, in perfect balance. I wouldn't be surprised if next time, in 6 months, get your blood work done if things aren't on the rise repeatedly. Feelings of overwhelm have been a real contributor during my journey as well. I have experienced breakdowns. It overwhelmed me for a while. I was not able to go in a big crowd of people. I didn't want to meet new people. I didn't want to be around people I didn't know. I didn't even really want to be around family. I didn't want to be around anybody who was going to make me feel worse about myself. Loud noises actually still get to me at some times. Also concentration. I just have become to like things a little more peaceful, a little more quiet. Don't want to say that it's necessarily has to do with focus, but I guess it's part of the focus a little bit. It's distracting for me now, and it never used to be. I actually was a person who would be able to put headphones on and put music on and work to that. Not anymore. And it was particularly worse. Of course, like I said, every one of these is better now than it used to be. So loud music in the background, loud TV, distract me, leave me not able to focus. That would make me feel overwhelmed and frustrated and angry. So all these symptoms would come out at once. So now I just kind of really enjoy quiet and peacefulness. And in my case, there was a lot of chaos going on the outside, in my outside world. So it's quite possible that it was just my body telling me that I needed to take that quiet space for myself and make sure that I had that for my own mental health. So the latest is Prolapse. I had no idea what this was. I didn't know that it was happening to me, but it does explain a lot. That frequent urination that we're talking about, that's most likely due to prolapse, the leaking. One thing in particular that has happened is not emptying my bladder completely. So I know that was not happening. I went to an ultrasound a couple of years ago. Again, no idea that I was experiencing prolapse. It doesn't show up in an ultrasound either, even a transvaginal one. So it has to be diagnosed by a doctor. It can be one of three situations: the bladder, the ovaries, or the intestine, and they have dropped and they start actually pushing on the wall of your vagina. And so your vagina is kind of caving in a bit and things start protruding where they're not supposed to protrude. It's easily correctable, apparently, but I have been living it for a number of years and had no idea. At first, I thought that was just me. And I understand now it is quite common after birth and during menopause. And it's quite easily corrected, maintain it, Kegels, all that kind of stuff. I actually did my last blog about it. If anybody's experiencing it or concerned about it. In my case, that it was concerned about it is for how long, because I had it for so long. But I'm sure I will be able to correct it quite easily. It makes so much sense So, ladies, if we are experiencing that, your frequent urination, are you peeing yourself? Is your bladder emptying all the way? Mine was not. You're sitting there trying to fiddle around and get myself in the right position, then relax, give it a little push. It's quite the little experience to be able to try and empty the bladder fully. So if you're experiencing this, please go get it checked out because it could be prolapse. Restless leg syndrome. I actually used to think that it was anxiety, but now it's more likely that I've experienced restless leg syndrome. Here's something I learned about that. If I didn't drink enough water during the day, my muscles would basically be tight. So at night, that's when I would get restless leg syndrome. Let's define that just so we all understand. What is restless leg syndrome? It's uncontrollable urge to move your legs, especially at night. Why is it that everything affects us at night, right? Hot flashes are at night. We gotta wake up to pee at night. Restless leg syndrome's at night. Insomnia is so I would be trying to sleep or sleep, and it would keep me awake because once I was asleep, I generally didn't wake up feeling like this as I was sleeping. So I would get up and go to the bathroom thinking that it was anxiety that I didn't empty my bladder fully. And in some cases that did help. Sometimes I would have to go to the bathroom like twice or 3 times in a short amount of time. Now, it's more than likely that it was passing by that time in like a half hour or an hour. My legs, involuntary movement. So it's fighting the urge to move your legs. So sometimes I would just do it. Sometimes I would just shake my legs, just move them back to back and all that a little bit. And that would help sometimes. So I did a little research on it, if there was any connection between restless leg syndrome, first of all, what could cause it, and tight muscles, yes, but then the lack of drinking enough water or being hydrated. So that was a huge connection. It was a physiological thing that was happening to me that just happens to be a menopause symptom. But that was quite easily fixable, curable by making sure that I drink enough water. And I really don't have much anymore because I keep that in mind to make sure that I drink enough water, make sure I stretch, all that kind of stuff. So that mood swings I may have touched on. Again, I thought that was contributed to other stuff. Some women do suffer from PMS. I never thought I was terribly bad. I would get the munchies, but I never really considered myself to be a horrible person or change of personality or anything like that during my PMS time. When I found out that mood swings were a menopause symptom, I did recognize that and that I was experiencing those, I believe in perimenopause. That was one of my perimenopause symptoms. And it did go into full menopause, a little bit into postmenopause, but not as much. It was more so in the perimenopause when my body was, really starting to go through that change, ups and downs. I do remember having a few emotional breakdowns, if you will, where I lost my father during this time and my mother-in-law within a couple weeks of each other. They both died. And they both were kind of sudden. They were diagnosed with conditions and then passed away within 2 months of those diagnoses. So that was a lot to handle. So I believe that was a contributing factor. I don't know that I was dealing with it properly, dealing with this loss. I think that I was in shock for a really long time. I couldn't believe that this has happened. I was one of those people who didn't think my dad was going to pass away yet. He was 76 and he was pretty healthy. He had had a bout with colon cancer, but that was all good now. He had that under control. He was free and clear. So when this came about, he started having headaches. It was very troubling. And when he passed away, it was just unbelievable. I just was so unprepared. I truly didn't believe that he was going to pass away yet. I figured that that both of my parents would live till their late 80s, possibly even 90s. The women in our family my grandmother on my father's side lived till she was, I think, 98. My grandmother on my mother's side lived to be 92. My mother is now 88. So the women seem to have the longevity in both sides of the family. But it was a huge loss, and you don't realize how much a person impacts your life until they are gone. So when I was going through some of my difficulties through this time and trying to figure out and everything that was going on with my husband at the time, trying to navigate that, I would talk to my dad and I would say, can you please guide me? Can you please help me? And I would also say, what the hell what the F, even to the universe. Why is this happening to me? What did I do to ever deserve this kind of stuff that I was going through? I now know when I was stuck in the negative cycle, right? Because I was most likely mourning for a really long time. Call it depressed. That may have been partially, but I also do believe that right around the time when he passed away, when both parents passed away, I did start perimenopause. So these were family events, things that were unexpected. They were triggering for me and I believe sent me into the perimenopause cycle. So those are all the symptoms that I have experienced during menopause and how I have been able to deal with them. Now that you know the specific exact symptoms that I have experienced, I have dealt with it by lowering the stress in my body. And how did I do that? I have moved my body in the right way. I have walked. I have weight trained. I have been conscious of what I eat. I have lowered the stress in my body using meditation, using journaling, writing it down, getting it off my brain. I have visualized myself, my life, how I want it to be. And these are all manifestation techniques that are backed by science that is proven when we subject the brain to positive stimuli, it has positive effects. Surrounding yourself with the right people, being part of a community and like-minded people, people that brought me up, uplifted me, thought the same way I did. And these are all factors that helped me become the queen I am today. I could call them the 8 core elements now, 8 core things, practices, manifestation techniques that I have used to improve my menopause symptoms and live my life. And that was something that I really, really felt compelled to share because knowing that I have control by doing an inner journey, by showing myself love, and in doing all these things for my body is showing it love. It makes it feel better. It makes it work better. And then I make the conscious choice. It's a recipe for queendom. So this is how it's done, ladies. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that there was something in here that you found of value, and I hope that you will join me again. Thank you so much.